Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Kellam. Welcome to this week's edition of Encounter. I'm serving as the Parish Associate at the Union Presbyterian Church in Endicott in the Union District. You know, this is just a few days before Christmas, and the season is upon us with all of its music. I was talking to someone at the pennies counter as we were buying a couple of Christmas gifts, and I said, "Don't you get tired of that music overhead all the time?" And she said, "I don't even hear it. You know, it starts probably in October and goes on and on and on in a loop of some sort," and she's totally oblivious to it. Sometimes when the music's coming out of tin speakers overhead, it's easy to be oblivious to it. But when it's sung by a choir, or when we sing Christmas carols together, it can have deep meaning, not just culturally or religiously or sentimentally, but it speaks to the heart and helps tell the story. So today we'll talk a little bit about Christmas carols and other kinds of Christmas music that so enrich the season and keep it festive as well as spiritually meaningful for us. Our guest is Bruce Borton, who is the director of the Madrigal Choir of Binghamton, past professor of music at Binghamton University, that's retired, yep. And now your current position is volunteer choir singer at Trinity Episcopal Church.
That's correct.
In Binghamton on Main Street, across from Binghamton High School.
That's right.
We've been there for some concerts, and it's a unique place because of the setting, the acoustics, the architecture of the sanctuary, but also the serious music that is sung there.
Yeah, I joined that choir for 1 year in 2006.
Yeah.
And when I was on a sabbatical from the university, and I told Peter Brown, who was director at that time, I'd like to join your choir and sing for a year because I had the year off.
Yeah.
And I ended up staying. I just loved it. I tell people at Trinity, I came to Trinity because of the music. I stayed because of the people.
Very good, very good.
So, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the music program there because it is a very unique program in that it's the only church choir I've ever been associated with as a director or as a singer, where they'll pull out these Renaissance motets in Latin, and everybody says, "Oh, I love this piece. We did this a couple years ago. I just love this piece," you know. Or they'll pull out the wildest 20th century stuff and say, "Oh, this is great," you know.
Yeah.
Who does that,
yeah.
you know?
So it's not all rooted in the past, but it's challenging music.
It is, yeah. And the group reads like crazy. All the singers read music very well, and so we can learn things fast, which is not always true, certainly, with church choirs that I've been associated
and
with.
that probably is like a magnet. It draws people in who are interested in singing that kind of music.
It does. I think that people have grown frustrated sometimes with the church music scene these days, especially those who have had some background training in music and are looking for some place that offers a music program that is a little bit more serious, a little bit more challenging, a little bit more interesting in the long run.
Right. But let's move into this caroling thing, which is something everyone can sing, whether you have a lot of music background or not, whether you've been trained in musically. Everyone can sing carols. When I was growing up, I was not in a church as a kid. My parents weren't particularly active in a church back when I was, 4, 5, 6 years old. So my first Christmas music was Gene Autry and Burl Ives.
Oh, yes.
And then I learned the carols in school, which we don't do much anymore. There are some school districts that still sing Christmas carols, but many don't. And so now it's the church that's holding this caroling tradition, and if someone comes caroling to your house on a December evening, it's a rarity now.
Yeah. Well, it is certainly not as prevalent as it used to be. I remember when I was a kid that we'd go caroling around the neighborhood, and that doesn't happen a lot anymore. That's true. But on the other hand, the carols, by their nature, by definition almost, are simple songs. They originated way back in the Middle Ages as tunes that were simple tunes and designed to be not so much elaborated on by artistic composers and things like that with the fancy parts singing, but just tunes to simple accompaniments.
Yeah. And the purpose of the carols was what?
Originally, they were dance tunes. They were the term carol is usually, the early use of the term is probably associated with circle dances.
Yeah.
And the earliest carols we know were literally dance tunes, and they were passed down through the oral tradition more than anything else. At some point, the tunes may have been written down, mostly the words, and the tunes were generally just passed down through generation to generation.
Right.
Very often changing along the way too, as folk music is wont to do. The first collections that were actually written down really were in the Middle Age, in the 15th century or so, and some of the tunes were written down then. More of those tunes were formally written down in the 19th century, especially in England, with the Victorian composers and stuff like that. And very often those were more written like hymns. And the carols that we usually sing in church today are more formal hymn tunes than they are. They may still have the original carol tune at the top of the score.
They may not be particularly danceable.
No, that's correct.
Right.
Although some of the hymnals have, for instance, the original. There's "Comfort, comfort ye my people," which is very much a dance tune.
You get a sense of that.
And that may have been closer to the original tunes.
Yeah. And I would think that the carols, to some extent, for the church, were the parallel to the stained glass windows and the art, because they taught something about the faith. Yeah. The carols, the Christmas carols would tell the story of the Nativity, sometimes with quite a bit of latitude in the way the story was interpreted. It wasn't always particularly biblical, but it still helped the church teach the story to everyone, not just children.
Well, very often things are learned with music. We as kids learned the alphabet to a tune.
Yes. And the books of the Bible. And
many things are made memorable by attaching a tune to it.
Yeah. Well, advertising is certainly has taken advantage of that. Now, and before we went on the air, you were talking about the Oxford Book of Carols. So tell a little bit about that, because I'm fascinated by the fact that not all carols are Christmas carols.
That's correct. Carols actually were not associated solely with Christmas. There were certainly Christmas carols, but the religious carols that exist there are carols for every season, every liturgical season of the year. Advent, Christmas, Epiphany are the beginnings, but they also have spring carols, Easter carols, Lenten carols. And then there are any number of secular carols as well that very often are associated with certain seasons, the spring, the summer, the harvest season.
Right.
And the Oxford Book of Carols, which is kind of the Bible of carols for those of us who are musicians, has a whole raft of carols of all sorts, both old carols from as far back as the Middle Ages. and also more modern carols by composers in the 20th century.
Right.
This was originally collected, this collection came out in the 1920s. It was updated a few decades later, and it's still in print today. And many churches, and certainly the Madrigal Choir, has a number of these in our library, and we use them literally every year for lessons and carols.
So the canon is not closed on the Oxford Book of Carols. It could be updated with new carols.
I suppose so. It hasn't been changed. There were a few carols added in one of the updates in the, I don't know, 1950s or something like that. And there were a few, because research on carols has progressed.
Yeah.
And scholarly research is always turning up new tunes, new carols, and so they add these as it seems appropriate to do.
Sure.
This hasn't been updated though recently, and I think it's pretty much chiseled in stone now. I'm not sure. I think if they come out with a new Oxford Book of Carols, it'll probably come under a different title.
Okay. I was wondering if the Oxford Dons, the musical Dons, or whoever are...
For one thing, everybody's got these on the library shelves, and they don't want to replace them.
That's right. Well, you mentioned it's kind of expensive to buy.
Yeah, they're a little costly, but you use them all the time.
Yes, yeah. Now, would Trinity Episcopal Church use a carol from another period besides Christmas? Would you have sung, well, certainly Epiphany carols, but what about a Lenten carol or an Easter carol?
I'm sure they would. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember any particular carols that were used, but there are Advent carols, there are Lenten carols, there are Easter carols, and sometimes these carol tunes make their way into the hymnal as hymns.
Yes, right.
And so one would probably maybe even know one that they don't know was a carol originally.
Well, and I know that one of the issues, this is the newest Presbyterian hymnal, I know as new carol, you can only make the book so big.
That's right.
Because as we age, it's just, you have to have the print big enough to read. I like the music there. I don't like it on the screen with no music. And so as you add newer music, something else has to go.
Yeah.
And I don't think by adding a new carol, you're going to get rid of O Little Town of Bethlehem or Silent Night.
Yeah.
I don't know how you exercise those carols. An example of a newer one, I just want to share this one. This is by John Bell to the tune of White Rosettes, which is probably Scottish. John Bell is from the Iona community. Who would think that what was needed to transform and save the earth might not be a plan or army, proud in purpose, proved in worth? Who would think, despite derision, that a child should lead the way? And then the refrain is, God surprises earth with heaven coming here on Christmas Day. It's very contemporary, but I assume to an older tune, although it may have been a new tune, I don't know.
When I was in school, there was a collection published, the Alfred Burt carols.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, some children see him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And these were carols that were written by Alfred Burt as Christmas cards. He would write one and send it out to all his friends. And every year he'd write another carol.
Yeah.
And so these were collected at one point and published as the Alfred Burt carols. And they're lovely, little simple songs with contemporary text, contemporary music, and yet they very much feel like Christmas carols, traditional Christmas carols.
Our guest today is Bruce Borton. He is the director of the Madrigal Choir of Binghamton. He is a singer with the Trinity Episcopal Church Choir and a musician. When did you first decide you were going to become a musician? Were you in fourth grade taking drum lessons or what?
I think I decided to become a musician when I was in high school. And I sang in the high school choir, and it was something that, it was one of the few things that I actually did well. I probably gave up on being a shortstop for the White Sox at some point during that time. And decided that, this is something I was good at, I enjoyed it, and it might be something I could do for a living. And sure enough, I did a music ed degree and with a plan on becoming a high school choral director, and as it worked out, I managed to work my way into the college choral directing.
And I've read studies where singing is so good for you, not just spiritually, but physically and mentally.
Well, those of us who sing certainly feel that way. That it does help. There were many, back through the ages, that singing has been viewed as a healthy endeavor, and to expand the breath and things like that. Right. And so I think that certainly physically it improves the body. It also keeps the brain engaged, I think.
Yes.
I think music activity of all sorts, whether it's an instrument or singing or of any kind, will engage the brain in such a way that it becomes, quicker and retains memories and things like that. And memorizing music is a great way to keep the memory intact. Also.
Oh, and I know from experience that a woman who was our youth choir director in our church when I was growing up, in her later years, her memory was pretty much gone, but she could still sit down and play a tune on the piano.
Yeah.
People were amazed that she didn't miss a note.
I was talking to a friend, not just last week, I think, about the fact, and they said that one of their acquaintances said their mother was in a nursing home, and she can't remember where her shoes are, but she can still sing all the verses of a Frank Sinatra tune. And so I think there is some part of the brain that this knowledge and these memories are stored in that keep coming out to the surface. Is it your impression that there are less or fewer opportunities for people to sing together now? I look back, I wasn't part of IBM back then, but I know IBM had a chorus. They would sing IBM songs, and I'm sure the shoe company did too. Yeah, I think that to a certain extent has fallen out of favor in recent years, but there are still lots of opportunities, be it in school as a youngster, through college age, even if you're not a music major or something like that, it's not your principal endeavor, there's still opportunities to sing in college. There's community choruses like the Madrigal Choir, for example, that offer opportunities to people of all ages who want to continue their singing endeavors. There are community bands and community orchestras. Binghamton Community Orchestra is a very active and wonderful organization, and it's all volunteer players. And so these opportunities are certainly there for people to take advantage of, if they wish. But it's true that where businesses and corporations like IBM used to have very active music programs as part of their ongoing employee benefits. That doesn't exist quite so much anymore. Although they still sing Christmas carols down at the insurance company downtown.
Well, and I think probably the caroling that we still do, and there are, as you mentioned, the businesses do it and churches do it. Youth groups will still go out and sing carols, but it may be fading a little bit because of the schools, for good reason, are not teaching carols the way they used to. And it's not the school's job to teach the faith. We should be singing carols in our families still. We should be singing carols in churches still.
Choral music in general has suffered a lot in the schools, in the public schools in particular, because of this fear of being charged with religious activity in the public schools, that even some of the, frankly, a lot of the greatest choral music is attached to religion in some way.
Yeah.
And to just ban that from the schools has really created a problem for me as a choral musician.
Sure.
Whereas if you don't have words attached to it, you can do just about anything you want. But the minute you attach those words to the music, it becomes an issue with the public school programs. And I understand the idea behind it, but it has affected choral music more than any other form of music in public schools. Even the spirituals that were the core of the choral music programs, particularly in high schools when I was growing up, it's hard to justify doing them anymore, because again they
still have that
religious attachment to it.
Sure. When we talk about singing, especially during the season, I want to come back to Christmas and talk about the carols that we grew up with and that we could sing the first verse to almost without any music in front of our eyes. When you first learned these songs, do you have a favorite? Do you have 2 or 3 favorite carols that touch something inside you? That I know my wife was a church musician, and she used to cry during Silent Night and candlelight, and she said now it's I guess it's well, now I've forgotten what it is that brings tears to her eyes. I'm sorry, hon. But we were singing it. In fact, I think at Lessons in Carols with the Madrigals, and I saw a couple of tears, and it was maybe "O Come All Ye Faithful" or something.
Yeah, "O Come All Ye Faithful" always has been one of my favorites, and we always do it as the beginning of the Lessons in Carols. It's a great processional.
I think that's what it was.
It's a great opening. I think because it's such a stirring tune.
Yeah.
But actually, there are picking favorite Christmas carols like picking between your children, which is your favorite, and it's difficult. There are a lot of the carols, but the ones I enjoy singing the most are the ones that have the simple tunes that are easy to sing, and that fall within a decent range, that you don't have to stress either the top or the bottom.
And you can dance
voice.
to them.
That you can dance to, of
right,
course. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But the tunes are what sell carols, I think, and that was where they started, with simple tunes.
Speaking of where they started, you have a book there.
I do.
On the medieval carols.
Yeah, the Musica Britannica edition. This came out in the 50s when I first encountered this set when I was in college studying music history. But it is actually an encyclopedic collection of British music from very earliest times up until kind of the early Baroque is when it ends. One of the volumes of it is called Medieval Carols, and these are carols that were from the 14th, 15th century, and they exist more or less in their original form, which is 2-part, 3-part.
Yeah.
Many of these carols were designed to have the melody sung and instruments play the other parts.
Right.
They could have been performed in any number of ways.
Yeah.
But there's a few of these tunes in this very early book that actually are familiar enough that they still are being sung today.
Yeah.
The Luli Lula thing from Epiphany. Luli Lula, thou little tiny child, bye bye Luli Lule. It's a lovely tune, which came out of one of these religious plays of the Middle Ages.
Well, they're lullabies. I mean, some of them are lullabies, and others are raucous dance tunes. but they're rooted hundreds of years ago, which means it's lasting music. And a lot of the music these days is kind of, isn't it disposable? It's
well, I think that's the nature. That's why that's kind of the nature of popular music in general. I mean, these days, the music of the '60s is considered antique.
Yeah, well,
music of the 14th century is
of another world.
Of another world. That's
yes,
correct.
Right, right. Well, I still enjoy singing. I've never had a great voice, but singing with a group, whether it's a church congregation or singing in a choir, has since I guess I sang in junior high school and through college, and then marrying a church musician. I've kept up with it, and I have a real appreciation for it, as well as an appreciation for what you do. Now, quickly, Trinity Church on Christmas Eve is doing some special music.
Yes, right. We are one of the only churches still in the area that is doing a really late Christmas Eve service.
Yeah.
And we always have a special music that takes place the half hour before the service actually begins. This year we're doing Bach Magnificat with orchestra and soloists, and that will be at 11 o'clock, I think, 10:30?
Well, 10:30, maybe the pre-music, and then
the service begins at 11.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a great service, and we've been plowing our way through Bach for the last couple of weeks. And, I think we can almost get through it now.
Good,
so,
good.
So
good.
by the time Christmas Eve runs,
that will be a special time. Yes. So our guest has been Bruce Borton, who sings with the Trinity Episcopal Church Choir. It's located on Main Street in Binghamton. And we thank you for joining us for this edition of Encounter, when we've been talking about Christmas carols and music in general too, and keeping it alive, both instrumental as well as choral. I'm Jeff Kellam, hoping that in the coming week you will be gentle with people and with yourself, and I wish you a Merry Christmas on behalf of the Broome County Council of Churches. Our thanks to WBNG TV for the facilities here, and for the Town Square media stations for carrying the audio portion of our program. Merry Christmas to you.